Hey, what's up, Tom?
Yeah, what seems to be the problem, officer?
Hey, hey, I'm afraid I'm gonna need to see your driver's license and registration.
Whereabouts are you at the moment, mate?
What's that?
Whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm at home in Delaware.
Nice, nice. Yeah, mate. I laugh because I recently, at the start of this year in February, got out of the army after 11 years. I was an infantry soldier in logistics. So when I found, when I was doing a bit of research, I did found out you're a cop. I was like, oh, you've done pretty much what half of my friends did who were that was a
Right?
common career move was you started in the army and then where did you go? You either went to the mines and did some really high paid, trading job, or you went to the cops. So,
Right. Yeah, and we get, we do have that. We got a couple of guys. Well, let's see. Yeah, we got a couple guys on that are guard or former guard, National Guard or whatever. So, and a friend of mine, he just retired recently. He was in the Marines, and so yeah, we there's a lot of guys that started out. My chief started out in the Army,
mm.
so it is a sort of natural progression, especially if you're in the Army or military police or whatever. Then you kind of transition over to civilian. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So, mate, the new album, New Messiah, how long have you been working on it?
Well, it's funny because it's been done for about a year. So we're just now getting around to releasing because our record label merged with another record label, Greek label merged with a German label, and so we became fish in a much larger pond, right? So a lot of other bands and things like that, releases and all that. So it's I'm sure it was a strategic move somehow to hold us back a little bit and then release. But another thing, I don't know if it's still going on or not, and I didn't really ask on this one. I know on previous records, it takes a long time to get like vinyl done, and they don't like to do those staggered releases anymore. Like, hey, we got the CDs burned, that's fine, but we're still waiting on the vinyl because production is so huge right now. But there are very limited vinyl companies, so it's weird. Anyway, I'm sure that nobody wants to really invest in like a new vinyl company if there's all these that exist already and already have like the contracts. My guess, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not an insider or anything like this, but I would imagine people are going to go, well, it's a fad. It's going to die down eventually and all that. But I mean, as it is right now, man, I'm going to Walmart and shit, and I'm seeing vinyl. They got vinyl in there. They got re-release of all the old classics and shit. So I think there's definitely still a market, and I think it's I don't know if anybody's yeah, I don't know enough about the whole industry, but that's the way it was at least a couple records ago. It's like we're always waiting on the vinyls and stuff like that. So you got to get your records done and in, and then it's a 6 month or 8 month or 9 month wait or whatever till we can even get vinyl. So I don't know. I'm sure it's logistics like that, but I think that probably part of it is more or less the merger between the labels. But it is what it is, man. We've gone. I think we're going 3 years in between now, which is weird because that seems to be the way it works out a little bit. I mean, we've been together for about 12 years and we got 4 records out. So yeah, average those out, it's about 3 years in between each record, I guess. So yeah.
So I feel like you would have to, being a cop is obviously a pretty demanding job with pretty demanding hours. How on earth do you juggle the demands of law enforcement with music, with trying to book tours and things like that?
Well, that's the thing. We don't do a lot of touring, and
Mm.
it's unfortunate. We would love to do more, obviously, but we just can't. Like you said, my schedule is pretty tough. I'm a lieutenant now. I've got far more responsibilities and stuff like that. It's not like I'm working the road and I take my days off and I'm done. I have other things, so I have to really plan out and schedule it a lot. Um, it's just it is what it is, man. I mean, we would love to tour more, but we can't. Our record label knows that, understands that. Probably one of the reasons why our budgets aren't huge for doing these records. Freddie and I do as much as we possibly can, like outside of a studio, so that we can kind of keep our budget cut down a little bit. We don't have the budget like a lot of bands do. And that's fine. We understand that. That's a sacrifice that we understand that we have to make, and we do come out of pocket a lot for this stuff.
Mm.
Uh, Anything from travel to whatever. So it's cool, man. I mean, we have a great relationship with our label. They understand our limitations. Freddie also has a full career. And we essentially, the band is me and Freddie. So everybody else is our friends, but they're still hired guns. They're part of our inner circle, but Freddie and I write the music and we produce the records. So yeah, so that's basically it, man. I mean, if we could tour more, we would, but as it is, I can do like 2 weeks at a time here, 2 weeks at a time there, and we can't do like full worldwide tours and stuff like that. We're not like other bands that have to tour to support themselves. We're self sufficient in
Yeah,
that, but at the same time, we can't afford to get out there and see the folks as much as much or as often as we would like to, but. So it's a trade-off. So, I mean,
yeah,
the trade, I get to, be at home with my family and stuff like that. And I got to be here and watch my kids grow up and all that. And so that's the trade-off. But to me, it's worth it on my end personally. And from my selfish point of view, it worked out really well for me, and I'm still able to do music and produce music. And I'm really happy with that. And I hope that, I hope that the fans are too, and understand my position. So,
yeah. How do you juggle being a musician? Now, like we're talking a bit about scheduling and stuff, but in terms of like your values and things like that, like for example, before weed was legal, I imagine you'd be on stage, playing, you'd be like,
hey, man. I mean, every place is different, but my jurisdiction is my municipality. You know what I mean? And I'm not. I think for the most part, whenever I started touring after I became a police officer, most people were pretty respectful of that, and they weren't like putting it in my face or anything like that, putting me in a compromising position where I might have to explain why I'm around this stuff that's going on that's or whatever. But I never had that hassle. Usually when when I came back to doing music and stuff like that after I was a police officer, it was with originally it was with Iced Earth. So we were touring and doing things all over the country, all over the world, and my managers and all that were always really mindful of that and respectful, and they made sure that people weren't doing shit like that around me and all that. No big deal. It's just it's not like it's not like there are hookers and blow everywhere or anything like that. That's never been in my area at all. Even early on in Iced Earth, man, it was always professional. With John ran a tight ship. Made sure that everybody was on the level. No crazy stuff, and just made sure that everything was right. That's just the way, always the way it was. Very professional. So, some obviously legal drinking and things like that. That go on with bands, but no shenanigans. So.
Well, yeah, look, how have the events of the last decade changed? I just mean that approximately, like with Black Lives Matter and all this kind of crazy, big social change. Obviously, we're in very tense times these days. How did that change? Did it have any effect on how you viewed policing and how you viewed your role in society? Because I remember feeling like after 2020, one of my favorite shows as a comedy was Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I went, oh my God, these poor bastards have all of a sudden, when George Floyd kicked off, they're like, dude, everyone hates cops right now, and they're trying to make a show about cops. You poor buggers, like, yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough, but I've seen it throughout my, I'm in my 22nd year, so I've seen it come and go. It ebbs and flows, and and people screw up, and cops do stupid stuff, and society, has the absolute right, obviously peaceful protests and stuff like that. Absolutely have the right to do that. We even hosted some after that occurred with George Floyd. Our hometown hosted groups that were out protesting and things like that, and everybody was cool and calm and polite, and it's our responsibility to make sure that they're safe and they have a safe place to protest, and like if there was any counter protest, anything like that. So I mean, it is what it is, man. It's just something I've known with police work since I've started. You know, we've always had there been, you know, something one way or another. People get upset and they want a place to be able to express themselves. And, you know, it's our duty to make sure that they have a peaceful place to do that. And that's what we do. That's what it's about, man. I mean, that's what we're here for. Even if the, you know, the finger is pointed at us going, hey, you guys, you know, did something or whatever, you know, obviously I get to share that realm with people that do stupid stuff sometimes. And it's just something that we have to take it and just go, okay, I get it. I understand you're frustrated. So
yeah, on that, when I was in the military, we collected so Legacy is a well-known charity that supports veterans. And every day, Legacy Day, where you go into town with the shake the tins to get donations, and you're in full uniform in public, which is I always found incredibly awkward, you know, very conspicuous. I'm 6'7", so
right.
me in a military uniform in public,
Yeah,
I just,
popping out.
yeah, there's no hiding, despite the fact that I was wearing camouflage. And you know, you would have all the crazies, all the normal people, but you're in the city center, so you'd have all the interesting,
Yeah.
the interesting people there as well. And you'd just be getting abuse and getting screamed at for people yelling at you about war crimes and things. And you're like,
Yeah.
dude, I work in a warehouse. You know, I haven't been in the
Right.
infantry. But
Yeah.
because you're wearing the uniform, you have to
Absolutely.
eat
Yeah.
it, don't you?
Yeah. That's it. That's correct. And, you know, whether it's right or wrong, as long as, and I don't, you know, man, I've been yelled at before. I've been, you know, called horrendous names before, but at the end of the day, because I understand it, they're looking at the uniform. They're not looking at who I am. So I just don't let it affect me in that regard. And it's just easier because I'm the one that's supposed to have, that's the thing. I'm the one that's supposed to remain calm.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I work for the government. I work for a municipality. You know, I'm like town government. You know, I'm not big, but still, you know, if you're wearing a uniform, typically, you know, people can look at it and go, you know, you're the man. You know, yeah, for intents and purposes, I am the man. But you know, I'm not the bad guy here. So, you know, it is what it is, man. It's our job. You know, it's part of the thing. But you know, with even with that stuff that's bad, there's enough really good things that we do that offsets all the bad stuff. And you just got to keep, you know, it's about perspective, man. You just got to keep perspective on everything.
Can you see things in a really broad sense? So you can answer this question however you want. Can you see things getting better in the United States? I mean, you're talking about how things you've seen things ebb and flow throughout your career of policing, but also your career, your lifetime as an American. You know, have you ever seen? I guess first question: have you ever seen things this bad or this tense before? And secondly, can you see it getting better?
But yeah, man. I mean, I have. I mean, obviously, social media makes it, it magnifies it, right? Social media, I think, magnifies everything, and what good or bad, you know. So, but yeah, man, I remember I grew up in the Cold War. I remember growing up, you know, doing the, you know, jumping underneath the desks whenever the alarms went off, and you know, the sirens. It's really about, again, perspective. I do think there's an information overload probably that's going on, and that's probably one of the things that's really affecting people, especially people that have emotional issues and things like that. I think it probably affects people in a much deeper way. Even, you know, I see it with my kids. You know, I mean, I talk to them about this stuff because I see it, and you know, I see myself getting, you know, a little more fired up about things here and there, probably because of that overexposure in media, social media, whatever, in all the medias, because that's what they're getting paid on our emotional responses, right? So you just have to keep it in check, man, and go under and understand, hey, man, there's been awful stuff that's going on around the world forever. It's just, you know, we're all now just getting it from every angle, every direction. It's a 24-hour news cycle now. I mean, I'm so old I can remember when there wasn't a 24-hour news cycle. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I remember when the television stations signed off, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then came back on at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever. That doesn't happen now. It's like constant, and it's in all the different media, and I struggle to say news because it's not necessarily news. It's media, and it's narratives are controlled on both sides, on every political angle, to get that emotional response. Because what happens then? Because then you keep watching it, and then you keep watching their commercials and
Mm.
buying the products that they're selling. So it's it is what it is, man. It's a bit of mind control, and I think a little bit of manipulation anyway. And I think that we just get so inundated with that stuff. I think that everything everything just seems more amplified now. But I do know that it's been horrible, man. The Middle East has been on fire for ever since I was a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just changes like locations here and there and other and every place and yeah. So
Can you imagine if we had social media when 9/11 happened?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, dude, imagine if we had social media, during colonization. I mean, you know what I mean? It's bad stuff has happened since humanity has
Mm.
been. It's just now it's just everybody knows it, everything about everything, and it's just all over the place. So yeah,
There's
yeah,
there's
important to unplug sometimes. Unplug from
yeah.
social media, unplug from television. Spend time with your family and understand that that's the important thing.
Yeah. Um, the what was this was obviously this was an inescapable subject. What was your reaction the first time you saw that photo of John at the Capitol? The infamous finger pointy.
Yeah, I wasn't happy. I mean, that's the thing. I wasn't. It is what it is, man. I mean, I'm not gonna dwell on that. John has done. He has done his time. He's taken care of. He's apologized to people for what happened, and you know, I don't think that there were too many people, and including I think probably John afterwards. He wasn't happy with the whole thing. Um, just a very unfortunate thing, very unfortunate day uh, in our history. So we'll hopefully
Hmm.
we're going to move on from that at some point, and people will have their forgiveness in their hearts and move on as well. So um, like
It's interesting because I spoke to it's obviously most of the people I speak to are quite left wing just by virtue of the I guess the genre and things like that. And so I find it interesting to get perspectives from anyone from an even halfway conservative background. Like I had a really interesting chat with I forget his name. He's the frontman of uh, Exodus, I believe. Sue, oh God, this is killing me. But it was it felt so unusual, and it was nice to get a perspective that wasn't, that was actually like endorsing, you
yeah.
know, the current administration. It was just odd.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, man. I mean, and I've had obviously I've had several conversations about this, and like people asking about about the music and our music, and like who are the new messiahs and all that other good stuff. And I go, well, here's the thing, man. You can put those characters, the idea of that, it can be left or right wing, whatever. I don't try to influence people. It's not my place. It's not my desire to put any of my political views out there for the world to see, because it's my business. And I think that's the thing. I wish everybody would do that, really. Uh, Entertainers certainly, as well. I mean, and I get people probably feel like, hey, I'm in an area of influence. I can influence people and all that. I'm not here to influence people. I'm here to entertain people. So I just don't speak of that. I don't I don't go down that road. Um,
Well,
you
you don't
know,
want to hear what a Hollywood celebrity thinks
yeah,
thinks is wrong with society.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to be that guy. And I don't want to be put in that category of somebody who, spouts out their political beliefs and does that. You can look at my social media. I don't put anything on there about politics because it's not important enough for me to alienate people that are fans, and it does. It happens, man. I mean, because you can't get away from it. And I do my best, like music and all that other good stuff. I do my very best to separate, people's political beliefs from the art, the art from the artist, and so on and so forth. That's kind of my gig. And I hope that, people do that with people that they enjoy, whatever art form that they put out. But I know that it's got to be tough sometimes, especially for ones that are, vehemently, opinionated. But my thing is, I just don't put my politics out there, man. And I don't shove religion down people's throats. I don't do any of that. To me, I think all of that's very, very personal, because how can I put my opinion out there for people to possibly follow when I have no idea what their life is like? Politics and religion are really personal things. It's like, I make decisions on politics based on my life experience. And so I can't, and I'm not going to judge other people for their personal experiences and what they do, who they vote for, who they worship, whatever. That's their business. I'm here to entertain. So I really do my very best to not influence people in that way. If I can influence people with my music to make their lives better, fantastic. And if my music doesn't make people's lives better, then they, please move on to somebody else. That's my thing. I don't want, I hear a lot of people, I read comments and things like that, and critics and criticism and all that good stuff. And I'm like, okay, man, I get it. Move on. You don't like my music. You don't like the way I sound. Then move on. Why are you wasting your time on social media? It's
the addiction of rage.
Yeah. Yes, man. Yeah. I just don't.
We should wrap it up, mate, because I think we're coming towards the end of our slot. This has been a really interesting conversation, Matt. So thank you for your time. And man, all the best for the album. Be good to yourself.
All right. Thanks, sir. You take care, man.